20-gram experience, a post on the shrooms subreddit by the user KillMyDay69. As some of you know, I trawled on 20 grams of dried mushrooms last Friday. I work as a guide at an ayahuasca retreat centre, and once in a while we all meet and trip together, and this Friday there were 30 people travelling on ayahuasca and shrooms. We had 3 shamans chanting and singing for us, 2 guys, 1 woman. I prepared my shrooms lemon textile, 4 oranges, 1 citrus and 1 peach. An hour or so before the journey, I mixed my grinded shrooms in with the lemon. We all went to the ceremony room and had a talk all together. Under that talk, I began worrying that the shrooms would lose potency due to the long time it was mixed. But believe me, that's a waste of thought. I drank the mix sitting up and stayed up about 10 minutes before I think I felt the mushrooms kicking in. So I laid down, put some shades on my eyes and covered myself with a blanket. The music accompanying us was rainforest sounds, and it just went on and I was floating with it. Suddenly the sounds were ripped apart by the most feminine voice I've ever heard. She sang like a goddess, and it was by then that I was slipping in and out of my very mind. At one point, in the beginning, I got really confused because I was thinking to myself, did I do DMT? Because I was in that sort of universe but at a much slower pace. It was moving together with the female shaman's voice. It was really magical. As I have absolutely no recollection or concept about time, I don't know when the next thing happened, but all of a sudden I was dead outside the earth, and I could hear all the people in the world, hearing them suffer, having fun, screaming, laughing, and it all floated through me. But it was okay. Not good, not bad, it just was. I then suddenly realised I had hidden myself inside of me, and that recognition had me laughing so hard that I was told everyone else started to laugh along with me. It's really hard to describe in details what happened next, but at some point I really felt lost and unable to find my way back. It was like I was travelling through eons and through different periods of time. I could sense how time had changed the earth, and I knew that where I was not my time on earth. It was either in the past or the future, and the totally strange part about this was that the voices I heard were not of my native language. It was German, Russian, and so on and so forth. But I understood everything, and I could hear them all calling for God. It was in that place that I suddenly felt lost. I began to call for my wife and my sister, but naturally they didn't come. I gotta tell you, it was scary losing one's own self, particularly just after I'd found myself deep within. I kept the eye shades on, as I was too scared to take them off. Felt like I might land in another universe or time. After what felt like an eternity, I kinda realised that I'd put myself here to begin with, and that I was alone and had to let go of everything. Family, wife, kids, and so on and so forth, to liberate myself from the feeling that someone should save me. That was the turning point for the trip, and I was lifted even higher in the universe where the gods reside, and it was blissful to say the least. Next thing that happened was the strangest thing I've ever encountered on a journey. Normally, when the shaman decides the trip and journey is over, normally after 6 to 8 hours, he stands up and says with a high voice, "The journey is now ending, and the trip sitters will go and prepare fruits." But when he did that, I was like, hell no, I'm not ready to step out now. So the journey continued. Then after what was feeling like hours, he came again and again and again, at least 8 to 10 times. I was like, what the fuck, do I control time? Kept saying the same thing over and over again. At some point I just sat up and took off the shades and everyone was there. Holy Doctor Strange, it was, wow. I was still tripping, but not as hard. The next few hours, all I had was cool patterns on the night sky, and so I think in total, the trip lasted 6 to 8 hours. It's now Monday evening and damn, I feel great. I feel like everything was reset and I can do exactly what I want with my life. I did Happy Saturday evening and it really grounded me in quite a special way. Just want to thank you all for reading. Next time, I'm doing 25. All the love to every one of you. Now, in a little follow-up to that, in the comments section from a deleted user, they state that in 2008, I did 20 grams of dried B+. I'd tripped hundreds of times and used other drugs heavily since 1995. After that trip, I've never touched a drug again. I would like to trip again at some point, but that trip just destroyed me and rebuilt me from the ground up. I can't really say it was an enjoyable or not enjoyable trip. It was just different. The come-up was like the peak I experienced on a brown microdot of acid. I was seeing people ranting in a different language, looking like Pinocchio puppets. Then from every corner, every surface, a bright light emerged. It was not psychedelic. It was a bright white light. It took over everything until all I saw was white itself. For 3 hours, I have no memory. I have no idea what I saw or felt. I started coming down and I felt burnt out. I sat shell-shocked in my backyard watching a universe hang in the cigarette smoke, planets, stars, moons in beautiful detail. And at the centre of it all, I saw this bright white light. I crawled into bed that night, a changed man. But in the following year, I did develop some extreme anxiety and had to start all over from scratch. I left my job and found one I love. I left my girlfriend and found one I love. It was something that I'm glad I did. I needed saving, but I would not recommend or do it again. Captain Fatbad replies, I've been to this all-white place on 22 grams. I compare it to the white loading room in the Matrix. I could still hear voices all around me. I thought I was stuck that way. I didn't touch psychedelics for almost 15 years after that. User replies with, I had no awareness I could remember. It's like I stopped existing for 3 hours straight. So I guess I have a few thoughts on this. Also,
Happy New Year, everybody.
Hope you have made some serious resolutions to sort out your destructive behaviours, process your shadow energy, and just generally live your best life, brother. I'm definitely on that vibe. As many of you know, I struggled with ketamine addiction for a big chunk of this year, and yeah, it's been an up and down journey for me, and that's my main New Year's resolution, to just seriously rewire my brain and body and just get back in track into normal functioning habits. Yeah, but that's a little tangent. Let's talk about the actual trip. But I know that's what you all really want. Obviously, I'd say the most interesting aspect of this is the sort of white light experience that I guess the original poster might have also experienced during his trip. Obviously, he says his recollection of the experience is a lot blurrier than how he describes. But at doses of this magnitude, it really does seem that you go beyond just the standard psychedelic experience of, say, sub 5 grams of mushrooms, where everything's the traditional, trippy, aesthetic, fractals, geometry, heightened senses, heightened colours, just basically being super sensitive to more aspects of consciousness, covering all of your senses. But then there's a point after, or even during a heroic dose, that all of that begins to dissolve, and the visuals sort of build up and build up and build up and build up to the point where they sort of cascade and merge together, and then it all just becomes one singularity in a sense, often conveyed through some form of white light, because it's almost like there's an experience of nothingness, but it's not total nothingness, because total nothingness the literal lack of anything. There's not even going to be a white light there. So it's not quite an experience, because you can have an experience of literal nothingness on psychedelics and other mind-altering tools. But sometimes people conflate the white light with the nothingness, the void, the no self experience. But I'd say these are all them, those terms I just used, are actually just different flavors of different degrees of awakening from the dream of illusory reality. But there's so many different degrees and flavors and variations that I'd say one of the most common is sort of the Matrix waiting room, the white room, where it's like, whoa, almost feels like the manifestation of what a lot of religious spiritual practices refer to as limbo, where it's literally just basically waiting to be churned back out into a reality. The soul, if you will be churned back out into another reality or dimension of existence or consciousness, or any form of possibility that consciousness / the soul. I use these terms interchangeably just personally. Feels like, yeah, that's where it waits for the energy to be generated, for it to manifest in a particular way of being. Obviously, this is just, I need to lay the fucking ground. Like, this is all conjecture. I don't actually really know any of this stuff. I say this all the time. People are probably so sick of hearing it, but I don't really know what the crack is at all. I'm just some guy from Lancashire trying to figure out what the bloody hell's going on with these psychedelics. Like, don't actually really know the truth at all. I feel like in my own personal experience, I've had kernels of the truth that I've tapped into, and obviously from the extensive amount of trip reports I've read over my whole life, and just general research in psychedelics, mysticism, occultism, spirituality, paranormal stuff, all the woo-woo stuff that you bloody materialists hate. It definitely feels like reality goes beyond just whatever there is right now in front of me. Like, oh, look at this physical manifestation of consciousness. This is just one particular way of being. Because I mean, let's not be funny. Let's just admit it. Let's just admit it right now in 2024. I'm cutting the shit. Reality is infinite. And sometimes people like to conflate that with, oh, well, yes, the universe is infinite. It's expanding forever and ever in all dimensions. Like, no. This universe we're in, it is just one infinitesimally small, fractalized point of infinite consciousness, infinite reality. This is basically nothing. Nothing and infinity are basically identical. Reality is contained inside itself. If I had like some infinite microscope, I could literally zoom into my Sopranos mousepad right here, and I could zoom in so hard, I could actually zoom in so hard that I actually end up zooming into the back of my own head, because I quite literally am the mousepad. There is no distinction between subject and object, and that's a very profound realization that you can have on psychedelics. I bet that's an insight that probably came to both of these people, obviously the original poster and the user who replied. I bet that's an insight that they ended up integrating later on, because whilst I think that's like a key insight in a breakthrough, but oftentimes for some people it doesn't really occur until after the experience. As I've said many times, the integration process is oftentimes the most profound and life-changing aspect of the whole mind-altering shenanigans that we like to embark on. It definitely is for me. In fact, over the years since I've actually tapered off my psychedelic usage and just sort of reflected on everything I've ever been through in my whole life that's broken the boundaries of physical reality and my understanding of materialism, which I held for a very long time, that's now just completely shedded away. But I wouldn't even say I'm like an idealist. I'd say I literally just have my own literal unique worldview, because again, I'm sort of in a sense, my own solipsistic bubble of reality, and my individual bubble of reality, the truths within mine are going to be very different from yours. Like, in your reality, you might be a Hindu and believe that instead of machine elves, engineering reality, or aliens, or paranormal spiritual beings that you think they're sort of like genuine deities that have been conveyed to you through culture, like Ganesh, Shiva, Vishnu, etc. And that's your truth, but your truth is just a different appearance to the truth that I've also realized. We both realize the same truth of, oh, there's different dimensions of reality that are all interconnected, and like maybe this is what machine elves and stuff and aliens and spiritual beings are they're like operating on their dimension to keep our dimension afloat. Not quite literally to the point where I think they're literally cranking these like psychedelic gears like a machine elf does. It just means that reality is so infinitely, has so much infinite potential that, and also because infinite, it has to be infinitely interconnected in the most beautifully woven way. It's almost like reality, the universe, any state of being or dimension is like a piece of artwork conjured up by the mind of God, but it doesn't actually really need to design it. It just thinks it into being because there's nothing that can stop it from imagining anything, because it's boundless, infinite, endless, and completely one, which means there's nothing outside of itself that can stop it from doing so. And to conjure up the most harmonious thing, which is say the universe or consciousness or existence itself as we know it, there's different dimensions and that all correlate, as above so below. So it's like our natural world around us, how we have an effect on the earth, affects how much oxygen we breathe in, the purity of just the air, how much greenhouse gases there are in the sky, and then affects the earth and global warming, etc. A bit like how we have that symbiotic relationship that has consequences. I'd say there's also a similar type of relationship going on with interdimensional entities and aliens and just higher beings and non-human intelligences that are greater and more interconnected with reality than us. They can interface with reality in a deeper way. That would probably explain how they can communicate with us telepathically. Oftentimes when people report seeing the Greys or any type of alien species, whether it's physical or non-physical or whatever, the common thread is that there seems to be a element of consciousness to the experience where not only is it extremely profound for you as a person to just literally witness, like if there's a grey alien that she walked in my room, I'm at the amount of emotional turmoil and paradigm shattering thoughts and feelings that would occur in my consciousness is already an element of consciousness going on. But the extra element is that the Greys and all these other beings and machine elves can actually get inside your consciousness, because in a way, since infinity, well, not in a way, because infinity is one, it's one absolute singularity. They are you, literally they are you. There's just a sense of separation, because quite literally, to be an ego, to be a separate self, to be finite, there has to be a distinction between you and them. But at the highest levels of awakening and psychedelic pursuit, there is just one infinite consciousness, which is sort of what God is. And then there's just infinite subdivisions of God, and they can go all the way to being like a literal demon, or an ant, or a human, or a grey alien, or whatever the hell else is out there. Fucking, all I like to think about it is that in some universe, Shadow the Hedgehog actually exists, and that thought keeps me up every single night. I hope I reincarnate as him. That would be fucking epic, bro. So, yep, Happy New Year. Keep your heads in gear, and don't do anything I wouldn't do. Right, I'll see you in the next one.